Hello and welcome to the Cailleach's Cave. I have another story for you today. This one's called The Mound in the Dark Grove. I wrote it quite recently, inspired by this phrase, which is the translation of a name for an ancient burial mound in Wales, I believe. The story begins with a young girl who lives on her parents' farm. She doesn't much like farming. In fact, she finds the routine of daily life rather dull and longs for more adventure and wildness. One day at the beginning of spring, while she's out tending to the sheep at the end of her parents' land, she feels a strange pull to hop over the dry stone wall and go wandering in the woods beyond. The woods are dense, but sun kind of gleams through the canopy and spring shoots lift the earth. She wanders merrily through the woods, hoping that something exciting will happen to her. Squirrels dart up trees around her and jackdaws warn of her presence. As she goes deeper, the glow of the high sun begins to fade, and the canopy grows thicker and blocks out the light. It feels almost like dusk under the trees, though it can only have been a few hours since midday when she left the fields. All at once she stops abruptly, gazing ahead, to where a faint light emanates from a dark place between the trees a few yards ahead of her. As if in a dream, she feels something strange and wild pulling her forward. Stepping through the undergrowth, her eyes fixed on the clearing ahead that grows wider as she slips between the two beech trees and then steps into a dark grove where the trees are more evenly spaced and the air hums with a kind of pulsating power. In the centre of the grove is a mound of earth, about the size of a small house, and the hum seems to resonate from deep within the mound. The sound grows louder the closer the girl steps to the mound, and she feels the pull that grips at her heart and drags her feet forwards, intensifying. Unseen by the girl, a dark, hunched figure steps out from behind a tree and claps her on the shoulder. Startled out of her dreamlike trance, the girl jumps and shrieks. An old woman shrouded in layers of fabric with bones and feathers hanging about her neck shakes a wrinkled finger at the girl. "If you must pass this way, then you'll need protection." Perplexed, the girl doesn't respond, just stares in fear and excitement at the old woman, who cackles and pulls a necklace out of one pocket in her immense shawls, which she places over the girl's head. The twine is made from spun wool and carries a round stone with a hole in the centre. From another pocket she pulls a fistful of red clay and daubs something on the girl's forehead. "A rune of protection for you, my girl." The girl opens her mouth to speak, but the woman shushes her. "I can feel your lust for adventure, girl, and the call to the wild is felt by many young women who pass this way. Just know that if you pass this way again, you will not be the same." The girl nods solemnly and thanks the old woman, who shrinks back into the murk. Turning back to the mound, she jumped yet again as she saw that an entrance had suddenly appeared in the grassy face directly opposite her in the mound, and inside the passageway, if that is what it was, the light was as black as a moonless night. The girl gathered her fear about her and held tight to the amulet the old woman had given her, and stepped through the entranceway into the world that lay beyond. As she did so, the hum grew deafening, and she clapped her hands over her ears. In the centre of the dark of the mound, she felt her body become weightless. The hum died away, and she was hanging in empty space. All around her were stars, and they rippled as though reflected in a deep pool. She put out a hand and felt a small resistance, as though she too were suspended in water. Suddenly, from the ends of her fingers shot leaves, which came out and grew around her into a sphere of twining ivy and willow and rowan, all tangled together. In the centre of the green sphere, she gasped and marvelled at the power she felt growing in her bones. She shot out the fingers on her other hand, and out poured snow, which whipped around her body, as though the sphere had become a snow globe, shaken by a giant. She experimented with this new power, and over time found that she could control the whole universe in which she seemed to hang now. The logic there was not the same as back home, and she seemed to move between spaces effortlessly, building worlds and tearing them down with the faintest of movement of a hand. She stayed in that world for what felt like years, exploring her power, creating and destroying and creating again. She made food so she could eat, and oceans, and beautiful animals with all kinds of shining colours. She made sea cliffs the size of Everest, and dived down them into a sea that she made bright orange and filled with the wildest sea creatures. One day, though, she began to feel lonely and hungry for something that the wild power of free creation in this strange new world couldn't quite give her. She knew it was time to return back home, if she could only figure out how to get back. In that second that she had that thought, she felt the hum rise in her ears, and her body was pulled down, as though through water, until she felt her feet land on solid ground. She was standing at the entrance to the mound, which had in fact disappeared. Although it had felt like years in the other world, the forest seemed the same. Although she was desperate to see her parents and her sheep, and feel the solidity of the monotonous life she had lived, she hesitated for a moment and flung out her fingers, willing the magic that had flowed from them to come into this world too. But nothing came. She felt torn between her world and the other one, but she knew in her heart that she would not be able to step back through the mound again, that that world was cut off from her forever. Out of the shadows stepped the old woman, who looked at the girl with an eye of knowing. Quietly she said, "The magic of that world won't work here, my girl." The girl began to cry quietly. Between sniffs she asked, "But why show me the way to a world that opened all that power in me, and then not let me keep it here?" The old woman said, "Over time, you will learn that that wildness is still in you, that the power is there and you can still use it. You will find ways to use it, you just need to learn. Come back here once a month and I can teach you." So the girl ran back to her farm. For a month she dreamed of the free magic she had accessed in the other world, but in the day-to-day contented herself with her usual tasks, tending the sheep and working the wool. And once a month she ran back into the forest to learn herb law, hedge riding, and the power of the elements. Slowly she felt the power in her body grow again, until one day, quite by accident, when she was tending the sheep, she felt something flicker and hum in her body, and without much force, a single white flower sprang from her fingertips and fell to the earth. The ewe she was watching over gently bent her head and snuffled up the flower, munching away quietly on it. The girl burst into ecstatic laughter and hugged the ewe, and rather than running off to the forest to tell the old woman, she stayed and chatted to the ewe about the power that she had found access to again. Thank you.